From Kern Government Television, welcome to this week's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting, originating from the County Administrative Center located at 1115 Truxtun Avenue, Bakersfield, California. Kern County's vision is to create and maintain a customer-centered county government designed to garner the confidence, support, and trust of the people we serve. Today's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting will convene momentarily.
Board to reconvene. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Gleason.
Here.
Supervisor Scrivener.
Here.
Supervisor Maggard.
Here.
Supervisor Couch.
Here.
Supervisor Perez.
Thank you, and welcome to the Tuesday, June 2nd meeting of the Kern County Board of Supervisors. We're going to begin today's meeting with the flag salute. That's going to be led by Jim Baldwin, the President and CEO of BARC. And I'd ask if you would remain standing for a moment of prayer, silence, or meditation.
Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you, Mr. Baldwin. Good to see you. All right, we're going to start off with our consent agenda today. All items listed with a CA above the item are considered to be routine and non-controversial by county staff. Consent items will be considered first and may be approved by one motion. If a member of the audience wishes to comment or ask questions regarding an item or items on the consent agenda, they may do so prior to a vote being taken on the consent agenda. A member of the board may remove any item from the consent agenda, and it will be considered in listed sequence with an opportunity for any member of the public to address the board concerning the item before action is taken. So at this time, I'm going to read the consent agenda items. If you didn't pick up an agenda and you would like one, they're available on the tables next to the exits. So starting on page 2, item 1 is on consent. Item 2 is on consent, but we're going to remove that, and that's going to be heard in listed sequence. And so moving on, item number 3 is on consent, and items 6 and 7 are also on consent. Then on page 3, all items 8 through 15 are on consent. On page 4, all items 16 through 24 are on consent. On page 5, items 25 and 26, as well as 28 through 33 are on consent. On page 6, all items 34 through 41 are on consent. On page 7, items 42 through 49 are all on consent. So are there any members of the audience who would like to speak about anything on the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, I'll return to the board, ask if any board members would like to remove an item, or I would request a motion to approve.
Motion. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you. And now we'll return to page 2 on our agenda and start with item number 2. This is an item under public requests. This is the proposed Kern County Hospital Authority Fiscal Year 2017-2018 budget. And we have with us Mr. Russell Judd, and he is the CEO of Kern Medical. And so Mr. Judd, how are you doing this morning? Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me, members of the board. It's good to be back in friendly territory and to be with you this morning. I am here representing the Board of Governors of the Kern County Hospital Authority. We'll quickly review our 2017-18 budget and seek approval. This budget is directed and been approved by the Board of Governors of the Kern County Hospital Authority after they have outlined and directed us through strategic priorities. Based upon those strategic priorities, we have built this budget, and by the agreement that transferred Kern Medical from the County of Kern to the Kern County Hospital Authority, the Board of Supervisors annually approves the budget for the Kern County Hospital Authority. So I'll walk through the budget. Please, along the way, if there's any particular question that you have, stop me along the way. And of course, at the end, I can answer any questions about this budget or any other actions that are happening at the hospital. The presentation is broken down basically in revenue, Then we'll get into expenses, and then we'll get into capital, the capital improvement projects, and then that'll also show where we will end financially as well as the amount of cash that Kern Medical has. So as I go through each step, please feel free to stop. So the presentation's outlined with the categories going down the left-hand side, and then the columns are the prior fiscal year's 15-16 actuals, the 17 budget that we approved last year, what we're projecting to end the fiscal year 17, and then the proposed budget for 2018. You'll see net patient revenue. This is the income that is generated as we care for patients, and money that is received from insurance companies or from government entities, Medicare or Medi-Cal, for direct patient care that is given. You'll see that we continue to have favorable years. There's been a slight decrease in net patient revenue in the 2017. That is actually an accounting issue, why the projection is down a little bit. There was some payback to the state of California that we had to move through patient funds. So the trend without that one-time adjustment would have been approximately $200 million for the 2017. So you'll see a trend as appropriate. The greatest result that we've seen over the years as we've transformed Kern Medical is the money that we received directly from the care of patients. When I first arrived at Kern Medical, we collected on average about $8 million per month from the direct patient care. Today we collect approximately $18 million per month. A lot of that had to do with the renegotiation of contracts, of course a dedicated focus on actually collecting the funds that was owed to Kern Medical, as well as the implementation of the Affordable Care Act. With the Medi-Cal expansion population, there's now more of our community that is covered by Medi-Cal, and we now receive income for those patients. You'll see the indigent funding had a significant increase in 2017. The state of California negotiated with the federal government its Medicaid waiver program. 2017 was its first fiscal year. That was a very favorable negotiation that the state had for year one, but it does ramp down over the next 5 years, and you do see that decrease that we're taking from projected 2017 to our actual projection of 2018. The next line is the county contribution. These are the funds that come from the County of Kern for the county responsible medically indigent adult patients. You'll see the decrease over the previous years. The budget and actual for 2017 was $3.5 million. That is staying constant into the budget of 2018 is that $3.5 million. You'll see correctional medicine. That change, correctional medicine is an estimate. That is the actual cost. We do a reconciliation throughout the year and then at the end of the year, and the actual costs that Kern Medical experienced for the care of patients that are inmates of the Kern County's jail system and in the Sheriff's Department. We're projecting $29 million. There is some work that's still being done on that with the new jail opening, what those actual costs will be. This is a projection, but at the end of the day, it is come down to actual costs. And then you can see other operating revenue that comes from some graduate medical education and some interest and other items in our budget. So total, we project to have about $350 million in operating revenue for 17, and that'll move to $364 million for the fiscal year 2018. I'll pause there. Any questions on revenue? All right. As we move to expenses, the biggest expense that a hospital incurs, we are a service industry, and that is our salaries, wages, and benefits. We are people who are serving people, and that is our biggest cost. You will see a significant increase in our budget, also as well as you'll see in the number of FTEs. Projecting about 1,329, and now this is worked FTEs. Productive, non-productive is time for people on vacation, education leaves, sick time, all of those elements. But you do see an increase. In this budget, I'll mention it here, you will see it carry over as well. As you know from our many discussions, when the county was operating Kern Medical, one of our biggest weaknesses and our biggest opportunities for improvement is our electronic medical record. We've been talking for years about when is it going to be time to invest in a new electronic medical record system. This budget does consider the purchase of an electronic medical record in sometime during fiscal year 18. To implement a new electronic medical record, that takes an additional 40 FTEs. You have to build it, you have to operate it. Electronic medical record adds a significant improvement in patient care, in the ability to appropriately document, but it is not necessarily a cost savings initiative. It takes more FTEs to operate a new electronic medical record, and you have to purchase it, and you will see those costs shortly. In addition, compared to the projected 2017, we are participating in a grant slash demonstration project with CMS called Whole Person Care, whereby we are not just caring for the medical side of it, but it's the entire person. We're working very closely with housing, with other county departments, Health and Human Services, behavioral health and rehabilitation, public health. That has added about 10 FTEs to that program, and they are fully funded by this demonstration project that's coming through the state and through CMS. Supply costs, we've strived to remain constant. There is an opportunity for us to be more efficient in our supply costs, particularly as we standardize and continue to improve operations where we're seeing a growth in patient volume. Our supply costs are staying consistent because we have to control those. The board's set some strategic initiatives, has given us some direction, given us some programs of where we can go to control supply cost. They are staying constant with increased volume. The other expenses, medical fees, purchase service, other expenses you'll see are pretty constant, slight increase with volume. Depreciation and amortization is almost, again, constant. The good news is constant. The bad news is we haven't been buying anything. We're yet to get to that point where we've got enough cash reserves to be making significant investments in capital equipment, of course, then which would increase your depreciation and amortization. Someday when we get a new hospital, that number will be a lot bigger as we depreciate that and pay the interest on it. Kind of in summaries, so the earnings before interest, depreciation, amortization, EBITDA that we measure, that's actual cash flow. You'll see $24 million projected for 2017 and a budget of only $9.9 million. That's a factor of two things. First, we are very conservative in our budgeting. We say we're not going to get as much revenue and we'll spend more than planned. You will compare that to the budget of fiscal year 2017. We had anticipated EBITDA of only $7.2 million. And so the conservativeness of that budget also does carry over. We do have the purchase of the electronic medical record. We're not going to make as much because we've added approximately 40 FTEs to purchase that electronic medical record. That is going to drive more expense and thus drop less money to the bottom line. Some of the additional FTEs from whole person care and other initiatives are funded, and so that doesn't hurt the bottom line, but the electronic medical record. You can see net operating income, of course, which is the same direct correlation after interest, depreciation, amortization, and you saw in the previous slide we don't pay a lot in depreciation, and so our net operating income this year just right about $18 million is where we're projecting, and our budget for next year is just under $3.5 million. That bottom line is year-end cash. So when we closed the fiscal year in 15, we had about $8.5 million in the bank. As we made the transfer last year from the county to the hospital authority, about 32. We budgeted to move that to 38. We'll actually have cash at the end of this fiscal year of just under $56 million. That cash, of course, we use for a couple items. The main one is for intergovernmental transfers. Throughout the year, we have to mail the state of California, who then passes it on to the federal government. Our largest one is about $32 million. We send the state $32 million, and 2 weeks later, we get $64 million back. So I think that's a deal everybody would take every day of the week, but we do have to maintain our cash reserves as those times come to make those intergovernmental transfers. For capital expenses, you'll see what our budget is, and this is where the electronic medical record comes in. You can see what we purchased in equipment for the previous fiscal years, and then about $2.5 million this year, spending again about the same. IS equipment, a large spend this year in 2017. That was in preparation of our electronic medical record. All of our infrastructure had to be upgraded, everything from servers to routers to wiring. All of that needed significant investment, about $3.3 million, to be prepared for electronic medical record. Then you'll see facility construction significantly down because we are having to shift monies to the electronic medical record. The infrastructure of Kern Medical is our single biggest struggle, both in systems, and we're making that large investment this year, but of course also our physical plant and the continued struggles that we have there. So we budgeted $4 million for infrastructure and facility improvements. So from the electronic medical record, we are in the final stages. We've narrowed it down to 2 final vendors. We're in negotiations with both of them. And so this is not approval to purchase a medical record. That will come forth at a later time. We've just budgeted for that. You can see the cost. There's one-time costs of this year's capital of $1.9 million, $4.8 million coming out of reserves, and then our anticipation is we will secure some debt of $10 million. The first year acquisition cost is $15 million, and then it's about $5 million over the next 5 years. So $20 million, it's about a $35 million purchase for a new electronic medical record, plus the additional costs of those FTEs. This is just the check that we write to the software vendor for the acquisition of the system. We will most likely take to the Board of Governors the acquisition of the electronic medical record in the second quarter. Sometime in October or November of this year. We're doing that for 2 reasons. The first is we want to make sure we get out of the gate strong, that we continue to perform at the level that is necessary, that we are continuing to demonstrate that we're operating the hospital in a fiscally sound manner. The other is to see what happens with the repeal and replacement of the Affordable Care Act. As you are aware, this current process is a budget reconciliation bill, meaning it has to be done this budget year. The federal budget year ends September 30th. And so if the bill is not done by this year, it carries over and the whole process starts all over. If the bill could, we don't know what the bill is going to look like. It could have devastating impacts. If they were to immediately, for example, change the Medi-Cal expansion, that would have significant impact to Kern Medical. And so before we make this significant expenditure, as well as commit to the FTEs, we need to see what the Affordable Care Act looks like. If nothing is passed by September 30th, and the tea leaves look like it's going back to the House and all of the politics will play out again, and who knows what will turn into it, we will then make our recommendation to the Board of Governors for that approval. It also should be noted in that transfer agreement, any debt that is secured by the hospital authority has to be approved by the Board of Supervisors. And so if we make the decision to incur debt to purchase the electronic medical record, I will be before the board again asking for approval for the hospital authority to incur $10 million in debt. To accomplish that, of course, at that time, we will outline what those terms are and what our plan is to repay it to make sure we stay financially solvent. So that's the end of the formal presentation. We're glad to answer any questions. We appreciate Elsa from the County Administrative Office has worked very closely with this, make sure we get it all done right, and again, answer any questions if I can.
Thank you, Mr. Judd. I see Supervisor Maggard has punched in.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Judd, for coming forward this morning and telling us the story, the explanation. It's a story that I think needs to be told. It's particularly appropriate that it be told on this day when we are previewing our nearest yet look at what next year's budget will be. Imagine the circumstance we would be in if we were still anticipating giving tens of millions of dollars to the hospital.
Well, you still can.
We still could. Yeah, we could. So first I want to congratulate all the people that work there and the effort that everybody's made to turn this thing around. This is a far cry from $3 million a month loss that we were looking down the barrel of at one point. And as I look at the, let's see, page 5, I think it was, it had in the 16 year, we made a little over $3 million a month net operating income, and this year $1.5 million. That's a long way from $3 million a month loss. So I thought that story needed to be told. The report that was in our backup material, and so therefore the report that the public saw wasn't as delineated as clearly as this is delineated. So I thought it was important for you to show that the actual results are significantly better each year than, at least they have been heretofore, than the projected results. And I didn't want people to worry that, oh, we were slipping back. So why don't you just one more time say that so that's crystal clear to everybody, that your projected results are likely much less than you think they might actually be.
Yes, we do budget conservatively. We don't want to overpromise and then not be able to deliver. And so we do anticipate a much better than budget. That's our expectation and our performance, and I know what the Board of Governors will hold me accountable to make sure it achieves.
The backup material that supports our agenda item as well did not explain very effectively what the $10 million of anticipated debt was. You've now explained that clearly, that that's related to the electronic medical record. So unless you need to make other comment about that, I'm fine with that.
That's what it's for.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, mostly I wanted to say thank you and congratulations. And I'm very, very grateful that this is better than it was and that we're on the right course. Looking forward, probably my largest concern for the hospital is the impending, looming reality that we will need a new facility someday. And do you have any thoughts on preparation for that and how where we are in that process?
Yes, thank you, Supervisor Maggard. And I guess I should apologize for interrupting you a few minutes ago. The state of California, after the Northridge earthquake, passed some legislation to instill a requirement that every hospital be seismically safe. Kern Medical, in the buildings that were built in the 20s and the 50s, does not meet those seismic requirements, and those seismic requirements are enforceable in the year 2030. And so not only just the deterioration of the facility over time, but also now with this legislation, that with this pending date, the legislation is not pending. We have to have a new facility. We can continue to operate D-Wing as well as our E-Wing, but approximately 3/4 of our inpatient space has to be replaced. The Board of Governors did enter into an agreement with a planning and architectural firm. Approximately 8 months ago, they've been doing their planning. I just saw the draft last week. We have not taken it yet to our Board of Governors. They're working through the draft, wherewith they are identifying what is the bed need, what's the capacity need of the facility, and what would it look like? Again, all just in very basic principles, not architectural drawings, but just understanding. And then, of course, what is that going to take money-wise? The preliminary results to replace that which does not meet seismic requirements is about $350 million. And so by 2030, we're going to have to figure that out. That's a big check. Clearly we won't have that much cash. There's the ability, of course, various bonds matters. We will have to work through that, see what the appetite is of the market to loan the authority that type of money, what we put forth. We are still a municipality. We can put forth those bonds. Of course, we can work with the county in that aspect, and so we will begin that process. Hospital construction is about 8 years at a minimum. And so this decision needs to be made here. Why it's not urgent, it's something that we've got to address, and we're working forward and beginning that process of how we come up with that solution.
Well, thank you for that explanation. So congratulations. I'm grateful for your leadership, grateful for all the employees and staff at the hospital who have helped us turn this thing. And I'm grateful to my colleagues who exhibited the courage and foresight to really do what was necessary to vest in the leadership of the hospital what was necessary to turn this around. So thank you to my colleagues as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Maggard. Supervisor Perez.
Mr. Judd, thank
Good
you
morning.
for your hard work and rockstar performance at KMC overall. You've really been great. Your team is fantastic. I anticipate we will have major changes at Kern Medical should the ACA be repealed. What do you know about that? Do you have any predictions? What impact should we expect to have at Kern Medical? And if Medicaid expansion is reversed, what do you anticipate our options will be?
So the Affordable Care Act, as you know, is very complex. There's many aspects of it that does not impact Kern Medical. The one element that does is Medicaid expansion. It not only impacts Kern Medical, it impacts all of the hospitals in our community. It should be noted that while we do a predominant amount of work in Medi-Cal, there are other hospitals in our community that see more Medi-Cal patients than Kern Medical does. So if Medi-Cal expansion is impacted with the repeal, not only will it impact Kern Medical, it'll impact every single hospital in this community. The drafting of the Affordable Care language at this time is that the Medi-Cal expansion will be frozen in 2020, meaning no new individuals who meet the Medi-Cal expansion criteria will be allowed to enter after 2020. That also is when the proposal is that each state go on what's called a per capita cap, meaning the federal government, for every number of Medi-Cal or Medicaid recipients, the state of California will receive X amount of dollars. They'll multiply it by the number of people who are enrolled in the Medicaid program, then the state of California will divvy up the money. That will be unique and through the process of what California chooses to do, because they will then make the choice. But then there's going to be the fight in Sacramento. Is it going to go to skilled nursing facilities? Is it going to go to doctors? Is it going to go to durable medical equipment? Is it going to in-house laborers? Is it going to hospitals? And so do we anticipate that our money for hospitals will go down? Yes. What does that do to Kern Medical? Until we can see the numbers, it's hard to say. Our mission, of course, here in the community is threefold. We're an academic medical center. We educate. And so, will we continue educating physicians? We are the tertiary hospital. We provide the trauma services. We're that third level of services that the community can't provide, and then the safety net. The majority of our safety net care is provided in our outpatient clinics in a doctor's office. Today, we have approximately 12,000 physician visits every single month. So 12,000 people step into a Kern Medical facility and see their doctor in the doctor's appointments, up on the exam table, that process that we're all familiar with. We will need to drive more people to the least level of care, and that is in the outpatient setting. We'll have to continue to expand outpatient to provide that care, get people out of the emergency department. We have a great partnership with Kern Health Systems, of course, who's the managed care entity. We're forming medical homes. We're doing all that we can to prepare for less money and then to use that more effectively. But the change in the Affordable Care Act will definitely have a negative impact on Kern Medical.
Thank you.
That's a long answer. I hope that wasn't too much.
Very helpful. Thank you, Mr. Judd.
Okay, I don't see any other requests from supervisors to speak on this issue, and so the requested action is to approve the fiscal year 2017-2018 budget.
So moved. Second.
I'm sorry, pardon me. Madam Clerk just reminded me I didn't ask for public comment. Are there any members of the public that would like to make any comments on this item? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
Thank you. The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you, Mr. Judd. Thank you. It was, as I said, it's good to see you today. All right, next item on our agenda is public presentations, item number 4. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons to address the board on any matter not on this agenda, but under the jurisdiction of the board. Board members may respond briefly to statements made or questions posed. They may ask a question for clarification, make a referral to staff for factual information, or request staff to report back to the board at a later meeting. And so at this time, I'll ask if there are any members of the audience who would like to make a public presentation. We ask that you state your name and observe our 2-minute time limit. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Scrivener, honorable members of the board, Ms. Kraus, Mr. Alsop. I don't have an opportunity to do this too often, so I wanted to take the opportunity this morning. On your closed session agenda after this meeting, you have a public performance evaluation of the Director of Public Health Services. I wanted to bring to your attention that Mr. Constantine and I go back many, many, many years. And we've had many discussions about policies, procedures, especially when he was head of what was then called animal control, and when animal control was under the Public Health Services Department. Many of our discussions to an observer would have been they're going to kill each other. We didn't kill each other. What we did do was show respect and consideration for each other. I think you are very lucky to have Mr. Constantine as your Public Health Services Director. He is innovative, he is collaborative, as Mr. Judd mentioned. His department is one that they're working with. He is looking for funding from sources that are non-traditional. I worked with him on a grant for the first TNR program for cats. And I just wanted to tell you that he's a good guy. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Ms. Keogh. Good morning.
Good morning to the Honorable Chairman and Honorable Board. My name is Curtis James Bingham, Sr., Street Evangelist for our Lord and Savior, God Almighty, Jesus Christ, who truly is the only begotten Son of our Holy Heavenly Father, God Almighty. I want to thank you for in God we trust, and just pray the wisdom and the knowledge of our Lord and Savior be on you, considering what you do, and pray God continue to bless you. I'd like to say one thing. Our world now, we're in a lot of trouble. We're in a lot of trouble because people are making choices. They're making choices, and a lot of these choices are evil choices. And these evil choices is causing a lot of problems. And so I just wanted to say, we have our leaders out there, which is law enforcement. And in between law enforcement comes the district attorney's office. And out there, the baddest, biggest criminal there is out there, they fear the law and the district attorney's office. And so I just wanted to be, as a person representing our Lord and Savior, who say that he's over law enforcement, is to make sure our district attorney office needs everything that they can possibly get, because there's no way in the world to know how many criminals coming in, but they're coming in big time. You can't keep up with them, but we want to make sure that they know we ready for them. And we want to keep them jittery, jumpy, and scary, that you go down there to the district attorney's office, they're not going to play. So I was just saying, I pray that we do everything that we can to see that our district attorney's office, Lisa Green and company, have everything they need, because they're not responsible for the evil that's coming down there. They wake up and there it is, somebody done something overnight. The greatest thing, if everybody's paying attention, as the Lord say, watch and pray, is the shooting. They're shooting each other for any little bitty thing now out there. And so we definitely going to have a fear out there that the district attorney office don't play. After law enforcement put their life on the line and bring them in, then the district attorney office follows suits and let these criminals know that Kern County is not playing. So I pray we do everything we can to see it to have the necessary funds to continue to do a great job at letting the community know they're going to do everything they can to keep these criminals in the right order. When they come from out of town or anywhere, criminals keep up with stuff like this. They want to know what kind of district attorney's office down there. They want to know what type of law enforcement we have. And we've been doing great business, and I just pray we continue to do the same thing. But I just pray the blessing for the district attorney's office really be understood. A lot of people understood it. They're not bringing the criminals down there. They just deciding to do crime morning, noon, and night now. But the Lord did say in the last days it's going to get worse and worse. So they're going to need the help.
Thank you, Mr.
They're going to
Bingham.
need the help.
Thank you.
And thank you, Honorable Chairman and the board. And may I say, I was my happiest last time I came, because it seemed like everybody gave you honor that the Lord tell us to do. The world's out of control because they don't want to give honor. But when you get yours for doing what you do, it's a great thing to me. So in the name of Jesus, thank you. Pray God bless you.
Thank you. Any other public speakers? Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Terry Akawilli from 88KC, our local Alzheimer's Disease Association of Kern County. Just wanted to pop in because it's nice and cool here when you're in the marketing business, out and about in this wonderful community, and it's so hot. It's just wonderful to come here and be able to see everybody and doing great things in the community. So I just wanted to pop in and say thank you for all your support. We could not be the nonprofit that we are, serving our community and our loved ones on the journey of Alzheimer's and dementia and caregiving without the support of the community and the Board of Supervisors, so I appreciate that. We have some things coming up this weekend. Since I'm here, I'll go ahead and share with you. We have a free caregiving conference this Saturday from 8 to 12 at our brand new building on Campus Park and Buena Vista Drive at 88KC from 8 to 12. We have seats available, and if you have a loved one on the journey of Alzheimer's and dementia, we have free daycare service provided for them as well, so please call us, check our website for that. Also, the weather's going to be beautiful come Sunday. We have our second annual Hot Wing Festival at the Great Kern County Fair at the Budweiser Pavilion, filled with fans, food, and all kinds of family fun, all benefiting 88KC, our local Alzheimer's Disease Association of Kern County. So please like and share us on Facebook, tell a friend. Thank you again for all your support. We can't do it without you guys, and everybody here. Have a good day, stay cool and blessed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public speakers? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to board member announcements or reports. Supervisor Gleason.
As we all know, we had a fire raging up in Kern River Valley, and the chief here would like to make a couple comments about it. Thanks, Chief.
Chairman Scrivener, members of the board, let me just take a step back. Item 30 that your board approved on the consent agenda was to terminate the local proclamation for the Erskine fire. So we've been able to finish that project up, get the MHU project completed, and as we come up on the one-year anniversary this Friday, we were able to terminate the local emergency. So that's a good thing. The bad thing is we continue to see major wildland fires burning throughout the county and the state. Actually, we've had resources in Arizona and New Mexico, and then on the ground here. The highway fire started Sunday afternoon around 2 o'clock. It's burned nearly 1,600 acres at this time. It's in steep, rugged terrain along Highway 178. That highway's been closed as firefighters work alongside the highway. Right now, we are gaining some containment on it. This is a Forest Service fire. It's in the Sequoia National Forest. The Kern County Fire Department's assisting. We've had nearly 100 firefighters on that incident, and we have members of the incident management team from the Kern County Fire Department that's managing this incident. The cause is unknown at this time, but with the high temperatures, we're seeing a lot of initial attack activity throughout the county. It's going to be a long summer. And I also want to stress that with these fires, our air pollution, there's a lot of smoke in the air, and we've been trying to throw everything that we can at these fires to keep them contained. A lot of manpower, a lot of equipment, bulldozers, hand crews, aircraft to contain those fires. It not only is burning the brush, it's threatening homes, and again, it's polluting our air. So we've been on it. These fires are going to be here all summer, and I just want to stress to the public, be safe, prevent wildland fires, because it is going to be the potential for a very devastating wildland fire.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Gleason. Thank you, Chief, and for all the work that your men and women are doing to help those communities. Supervisor Perez.
Thank you. Flyers at the back of the room. Summer brings lots of increased activities that are good, but unfortunately also some that are trying on local resources. Summer brings lots of travel, lots of demand on the roads, increased accidents, and of course, increased need for our blood supply. So we will be having a blood drive next week, Wednesday, the 28th. The van will be parked right outside of this building, so it's very easy for you to just pop in and pop out. It would be remarkable to have the support of the county again, as we did about 8 months ago. It was a remarkable success. Summer's huge demand, supplies are low. Please, please consider coming over. I know Pam Singh, our new public defender, is planning on attending, so thank you. I know you'll be spreading the word at your department as well. So during budget time, please think seriously about the blood drive. Just kidding. Please come on over.
Thank you, Supervisor Perez. Okay, seeing no other requests from board members, then we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, and that will be item 27. This is under County Administrative Office. This is the fiscal year 2017-2018 budget discussion and proposed preliminary recommended budget to establish spending authority until final budget adoption in August 2017. So I'll ask Ryan Alsop, our County Administrative Officer, to start us off. Mr. Alsop, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm pleased this morning to present my first recommended budget for your board's consideration. 6 months has come and gone quickly, and I'd like to thank each of you for your support and guidance during the last 6 months. If you'll indulge me here for just a moment, right up front, I'd like to acknowledge a group of people that are sitting here with me today, the CAO's budget team. They are all quite simply top-notch, each and every one of them. The recommendation before you today is a product of many months of their hard work. That work will continue and be ongoing through August. Putting together a budget of this size and scope, a budget that withstands scrutiny, where accuracy and transparency are essential, and attempting to make everybody happy in the end is never an easy task. When you add in the fact that it is a budget addressing a severe fiscal crisis, it is a monumental task. I have extremely high confidence in this team, and I'd like to thank each and every one of them for their work ethic, ideas, and support they have given the new guy. Thank you to Assistant CAO for Budget and Finance, Nancy Lawson, for her leadership. In fact, under Nancy's leadership this fiscal year, Kern County was again awarded the Government Finance Officers Association's Award for Excellence in Financial Reporting, a recognition given to governments that go beyond the minimum requirements of generally accepted accounting principles to prepare comprehensive annual reports that evidence the spirit of transparency and full disclosure. Special thank you to Elsa Martinez and the entire budget team, Brent Curry, Alex Alva, Kaylor Ayala, Amy Espinoza, Amanda Ruiz, and Joseph Areola. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, today is the first of 3 public meetings to discuss the FY 17-18 county budget. The document before you is a preliminary recommended budget prepared by my office as a placeholder until budget hearings are held in August. The total preliminary county budget is $2.4 billion. The general fund budget, which is the main operating fund of the county, totals $738 million. The county fire fund budget totals $142 million. The combined updated structural deficit for these two funds total $38.5 million, which is $1.5 million less than estimated in January. The proposed budget continues to follow a 4-year mitigation plan to mitigate the structural deficits. To balance the general fund and fire budgets, use of reserves and fund balance carry forward is necessary. In accordance with county policy, these one-time resources will only be used in the context of a larger plan to balance ongoing revenues and costs over a multi-year period. On a positive note, the projected total use of reserves for the 4-year plan has been reduced nearly $8 million. This recommended budget advances 3 countywide strategic initiatives that departments are focusing on in these challenging financial times. Number 1, enhancing quality of life for Kern County residents. This budget recommendation allocates $593 million toward public safety protection with minimal service level impacts to ensure strong public safety efficacy. Provides funding for the opening of the new jail facility in September 2017. Continues to provide in-home support services at current levels, despite the shift of approximately $3.5 million from the state to the county. Includes workforce enhancement through adult education partnerships, employment training classes, and job placement and occupational readiness services. It maintains library services at current year hours of operation and allocates funding to animal services for the spay-neuter program. Second goal, becoming a model of excellence in managing our business and our people. This budget recommendation provides for balanced budgets in the general and fire funds consistent with your 4-year plan to mitigate the structural deficits, avoid layoffs, and maintain service efficacy. It considers labor negotiations that will result in ongoing cost reductions and promotes retention of critical public safety positions. And it makes a priority of encouraging countywide promotional opportunities and regular recruitment announcements to hire from within. It also includes funding for a comprehensive analysis of fire and EMS services focusing on improving efficiency for service delivery options. The third goal, fostering a culture of innovation. This recommendation allocates funding toward the countywide deployment of Lean Six Sigma training to identify opportunities that achieve efficiency savings. It includes the effects of renegotiating contracts with other agencies to ensure appropriate cost reimbursement for services and tax revenue sharing. It holds for the replacement of the county's outdated email system to Office 365 and enhanced use of software and social media to increase successful hiring and employee engagement, among other things. In closing, in my initial comments here, I'd like to thank all of the county department heads, many of whom are sitting here in the audience today, for their help working with us over the last several months. They have been great. It's been a real pleasure getting to know them, and I really appreciate their support of me and the staff in the work that we have to do. And I really look forward to working with each of them going forward in the weeks ahead on this budget. With that, I'd like to now introduce my Assistant CAO for Budget, Nancy Lawson, who will provide further detail.
Thank you, Mr. Alsop. Good morning, Ms. Lawson.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. We are pleased to present to you a balanced preliminary recommended budget for both the general and fire funds. You may recall that the preliminary document before you today is not intended to be modified, as it is a temporary budget until the budget hearings are held. Our office will incorporate any board direction received today in the final recommended budget to be presented in August. The budget will also be revised before budget hearings to account for the final year-end fund balances and the final assessment roll from the assessor. The total general fund budget is $738 million. It is important to note this amount does not include either budget savings incentive credits nor the major maintenance projects that we typically add in the final budget in August. The net general fund cost allocation to departments is $346 million, or 4.9% less than last fiscal year. In addition to $9.7 million in NGFC reductions to departments, it is estimated that another $10.7 million in net fund balance carry forward, which excludes, again, the BSI and project rebudgets, and $8.7 million in reserves be needed towards operations to preserve essential public services. The ongoing structural deficit is projected at $29.1 million, and the mitigation plan approved by your board last year continues to make progress towards resolving the issue. The projected use of reserves over the 4-year plan is currently $30 million, which, as Mr. Alsop mentioned earlier, is nearly $8 million less than originally estimated last year. While service impacts have been largely mitigated in this budget, there are 12 departments using budget savings incentive credits, or BSI, towards budget reductions. 6 of the departments are using the funds to avoid layoffs in anticipation of attrition. 5 are paying for one-time costs, and 1 is seeking to fill currencies to maintain services. Additionally, approximately $5 million in growth realignment funds have been reallocated to mitigate cost increases related to human services, direct aid payments, and in-home supportive services that may not be available on an ongoing basis. Other future challenges include anticipated significant increases to retirement costs in fiscal year 2018-19 related to actuarial assumption changes by the Retirement Board, and unknown potential changes to the Affordable Care Act at the federal level that could impact funding for the hospital authority. The fire fund budget totals $142 million and has a projected structural deficit of $9.4 million. The budget continues to be reliant on one-time resources, including a nearly $4 million million contribution from general fund reserves for pension escalation. It is imperative that long-term solutions be identified and implemented in this fund in order to resolve its ongoing structural deficit. A projected increase in the property tax revenue for both the general and fire funds is largely contributing to balancing the budgets with less use of general fund reserves. In January, using a $50 per barrel price for oil, the assessor projected a potential increase in oil and gas assessments up to about 15%. The assessor staff has been working diligently to close the roll in a few weeks at June 30th, at which time the final numbers will be used to update revenue estimates that will be provided to you in July. Mr. Chairman, at this time, John Lipquist, the Kern County Assessor, is prepared to provide an update for roll close and to provide a long-term outlook of the valuation challenges.
Thank you, Ms. Lawson. Good morning, Mr. Lipquist.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. So this first graph, and first a caveat, oil price is determined once a year on January 1st. And this shows the spot price, which is not actually what we use. We use the futures price each January. Our staff analyzes those values. We debate with other counties and come up with a spot price. January 1st of 2017, the spot price, the futures price was determined to be $50 a barrel. This is a picture of the historic price going back to the good old days of 2013 when Midway Sunset was over $100 a barrel. February of 2016, it dropped to $25 a barrel. Last year at this time when I was before the board, we were at approximately $40 a barrel. That's about where we are today. What we saw was oil price started climbing in anticipation of a possible OPEC deal. That deal materialized, I believe, in September, and oil price continued to climb in anticipation that oil prices continued to climb in anticipation that oil inventories would decline. If we can move to the next slide. So this is a little bit, U.S. crude inventory. Okay, that's the slide I wanted. This is a little bit hard to read, but what we're looking at is oil inventories on a yearly basis. The lower graphs or the lower lines represent past years, and the highest full line represents last year's oil inventories. What you can see is that last year at this time, oil inventories were exactly what they are today. So the OPEC deal, reductions in production were anticipated to decrease inventories. That has not materialized, and therefore oil prices are actually declining currently. My understanding is there was $70 million in futures contracts that are set to expire today, and that inventory is likely to climb even today. So for a long-term outlook, I hate to try and predict the future, but I certainly can read people trying to predict the future. There is a great deal of pessimism that oil does not look as if it's going to increase anytime soon. The most optimistic outlook that I read is possibly March of 2018. We might see some substantial climbs in oil. What we're seeing locally is reflects what we're seeing nationally. There has not been any investment in oil in new production in the last couple of years. And what's happened locally, I guess as well as nationally, is that we're seeing declines in production, we're seeing declines in proven reserves, both of which have a major effect on our valuation of oil. We projected with a 40% increase in oil between January of 2015 to January 2016 to January 2017. We anticipated a 15% increase in our oil assessment roll. That has not materialized. We sent a signal to the CAO that the numbers were not looking good. Fortunately, our roll one, our real property roll, has more than made up for that difference. The silver lining in this is that with oil falling from about 33% of our assessment roll in 2014 to about 15% today, changes in oil don't affect our roll as much as they would have in the past. On the other hand, we're not seeing the big boost that a 40% increase in oil that we might have anticipated. As of Monday, January, we anticipated a 3.5% increase in our assessment roll. As of Monday, we were at 3.4%, so we're looking good. We plugged in some numbers that we know are going to change, and we're at a 4% increase year over year in our assessment roll. So we are meeting our projections. What will happen next year is a little bit dicier.
Thank you, Mr. Lifquist. Appreciate you being here to make this presentation. Also, the hard work of your staff. I see Mr. Smith over there. I know he's your expert on the oil industry assessments, so it's good to see you too. Any questions from the board for Mr. Lifquist?
Yes, I have one.
Supervisor Gleason.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Lifquist, break it down for us. You gave us a $50 target price for oil, and we built a budget around $50.
Correct.
You're going to refine that number in June.
No, we are not. The oil price number is established January of each year, so the number will not change until January of 2018 when we will be working on next year's budget.
So this budget's going to remain budgeted on $50 a barrel?
That's correct. All we're doing is we're analyzing the fields. We've got the last numbers coming in. Those numbers are on our biggest fields, so there's likely to be some change on the positive side. But the larger increases haven't materialized that we anticipated.
Okay, thanks.
Supervisor Maggard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Lifquist, thank you for the fine job that you do for us. I think you said that there is an anticipated increase in price per barrel of oil in March of 18. Was that the date you said?
No, that is a projection, one of the projections that I saw. There are multiple projections, some saying that it's going to be flat for the indefinite future. That's the most optimistic projection that I saw.
The only glimmer of hope?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you very much, and I appreciate the good work you do.
Supervisor Couch.
Thank you. Thank you for your report. Can you comment, if you did, I missed it, and I apologize for that, but there's two aspects that we need to consider, and one is the price, obviously, but also how much is still on the ground.
Correct.
And that changes due to depletion, just natural production, but also sometimes there are changes in what people are assuming is in the ground. Can you give us what you foresee on that front?
Proven reserves
Right.
are affected by a number of things. Basically, proven reserves we know there's oil down there. What can be extracted at any given market price? Another aspect of that is there has been a great deal of investment in past years. A number of wells have gone in so that they are now pumping out those proven reserves. That investment stopped in 2014. So the wells are chasing are pumping out the oil. The oil's being depleted, and the current market price doesn't warrant renewed investment in extracting that oil. So what we're seeing is a precipitous decline in proven reserves. We look at those proven reserves and anticipate how many years it's going to take to extract it and value that at a certain dollar per barrel. One of the other, I guess, silver linings is that is the same across the United States. So at a certain point, we're going to reach a point where renewed investment, the oil has been extracted, renewed investment is needed to meet demand. And that's what the article that I looked at saying that was the point that we would reach that was March of 2018. What would happen then is oil needs to reach oil inventory is reduced. Oil has to be a certain price before people invest in extracting oil. And the article I saw recommended that price is about $68 a barrel.
Thank you for that.
Supervisor Perez?
Thank you. At $50, you said we haven't seen any new production in about 2 years. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that really is the cause of or main cause of the kind of layoffs we've seen and sort of changes in the industry locally.
It's affected the local oil economy, correct?
Okay, so at 68 is the point at which, or the threshold at which it becomes profitable. Do you anticipate any new production in the next fiscal year?
Not at, what we're seeing is, and we look at the information provided us by the oil company, but we can also look at the Department of Energy's information. For the current year, we're seeing market declines in production. We're not seeing any new investment.
So you do not anticipate by March of 2018 a rise to 68 a barrel or beyond, I assume?
I can't predict the future. I'm relaying the information that I read.
So without the 68 threshold mark, we should not anticipate a surge in production?
And to clarify, the numbers I was looking at were for West Texas Intermediate, $75 a barrel. I just adjusted that for our local crude, which is Midway Sunset at 68. But the information I'm reading, it takes the break-even point where we're going to see renewed investment at about $75 for West Texas.
Okay. Can you give us any update on the Monterey Shale? There was a lot of excitement and talk about the potential of that shale. Do you know much about that?
There was a lot of talk about Monterey Shale. It is quite different from the shale that we see in the Midwest. And the best explanation that I saw, if we kind of go out of what I was talking about, this was a representation of the shale oil that is being taken from the Midwest. It's in a very flat layer. They frack the rock and can extract the oil. Monterey Shale looks more like this, so that when they get down to the oil, what they find is they can extract small portions of the oil. They haven't the technology to get to that great reserve. What happened, I think, in 2014 was the Department of Energy reduced the proven, or what they anticipated the reserves in Monterey Shale by 96%. So they essentially said it's not there, it's not economical, it's not practical to exploit yet.
Wow. Thank you for your candid presentation. Mr. Lifquist, I know separately and unrelated, my staff tells me you are our very first sign-up for our blood drive, so thank you. A little good news despite otherwise dark forecasts. So I really appreciate you, Mr. Lifquist, and thank you for being straight with us and helping us comprehend these matters and their implication on the fiscal health of this county. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lifquist. Mr. Alsop or Ms. Lawson, anything else from the two of you before I go to the public?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to relay that to the relation to the budget numbers, as Mr. Lifquist indicated, they think they have enough growth, and we'll know in the next couple of weeks on their roll one, which includes residential, commercial, that type of property, in order to offset some of the loss that we think we're seeing on the oil side. So I'm hopeful that from a revenue estimate perspective, we're not going to have to modify numbers much. So just so you know from that perspective, that does conclude our prepared comments, so we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Do any of the board members have questions for staff before I go to the public? Okay, seeing none. Are there any members of the audience that would like to make any comments on the proposed budget? Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Lisa Green. I'm the district attorney here in Kern County. I would like to initially thank Pastor Bingham for his comments this morning and his understanding of the importance, as I know each of you understands the importance of prosecutors in the courtroom. Last year, when I stood before you at this same time, budget time, the first budget hearing, I was unable to meet the 5% cuts mandated by the board and recommended by the CAO's office. As a result, 3 deputy district attorney positions were unfunded. The total cost of those 3 positions to the county was $360,000. You heard me talk about that time and time again, both before the budget and after the budget was adopted. This year, I find myself in a different position, and so do the 5 of you. I submitted a budget at guideline, meaning I absorbed the 3.5% cuts mandated by this board, as did every county department. I am not asking for $1 more from the general fund. Yet I'm being told by the CAO's office that I have to unfund another 3 deputy district attorney positions. I'm told that maybe if things improve in the future, I will get those positions back. And I've heard that before. The CAO wants me to unfund 3 deputy DA positions, use 1/3 of my budget savings incentive, or BSI, as you've heard it referred to today, and they will recommend to the board that my office, my department, be given $500,000 from the general fund, which I would like to point out merely restores $360,000 that was taken from my budget last year and gives me only an additional $140,000. My response to the CAO's proposal is this: the CAO's position is unreasonable and unacceptable. Back in February, when the first budget emails went out to the departments, when we were requested to submit a budget at guideline, absorbing a 3.5% cut, that is exactly what I did. There was never an email or a phone call or an asterisk that said, and oh, by the way, don't rely on BSI. In fact, I was operating under a certain set of expectations based on last year's budget that it would be acceptable to use BSI, because that's exactly what I did last year. That's exactly what you allowed me to do last year. That's exactly what the CAO's office allowed me to do last year. The difference is last year I didn't have enough BSI to meet the new net county cost, and this year I do. But I'm still being told to cut deputy DA positions. And not just any deputy DA positions, not just any positions, but deputy district attorneys who, what I like to say, are the last stand for law enforcement when we go into the courtroom and finish the deal in terms of handling the cases that come to us from the approximately 17 law enforcement agencies throughout the county. The first time that I was informed that BSI usage wasn't acceptable was in my first and only face-to-face meeting with CAO Alsop, and that was May 22nd. My budget, as submitted by my office, is at guideline. In a time, and we presented to you, and I won't go into this in great detail, but back in January, we were asked to present about innovations and programs that we were involved in, and I would just say that in a time when more and more demands are being put on my office, participation in Veterans Court, participations in mental health court, domestic violence diversion court. I've been asked by a supervisor to play a role in investigation and prosecution of marijuana dispensaries. Our increased role, statewide role in internet cafes, which are important to all the supervisors. The resentencing hearings after Proposition 47 and Prop 36, the list goes on. And I've absorbed all those things that my office has been asked today, asked to do. But today I'm asking the 5 of you, I don't know that the language is right, but the point I'm trying to make is to not approve a placeholder budget as it's been presented to you today. I understand that there are further hearings. I'll be at those hearings. But the budget, the placeholder budget that's been proposed by the CAO's office, I want to make it clear, I think I am clear, that I'm not in agreement with that. In conclusion, I want to state my position again. You gave me a budget number to meet, and I met that number, taking the 3.5% mandated cuts. And 1 month ago, I'm told by the CAO's office, sorry, that doesn't work for us. The board letter talks about minimal service level impacts on public safety. That's in Mr. Alsop's letter. He reiterated and repeated that today. And I'm here to tell you that in order for my office to service the citizens of this county, the victims of crime, that I have a profound concern for public safety in this county if I'm asked to again reduce by 3 more deputy district attorneys. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Green. Do we have any questions or comments from members of the board? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Alsop, would you like to respond?
To the, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, just to be clear, District Attorney Green mentioned at the front of her comments this morning that she was cut 3 positions last year, and she's being asked to cut 3 more. For most in the audience, they would do the math and say that's 6. The reality is that she was asked to cut 3 last year before I was here, and she found some funding for 2 of them, so she really only has 1 that's cut. So of the 94 authorized positions that she has, deputy DA positions, only 1 of them is currently unfunded. And it is true, as part of our recommendation, we're asking for 3 more to be unfunded for a total of 4. This budget recommendation funds 90 of 94 positions that the district attorney's office has authorized, 90 of 94. Currently, she has 84 district attorneys. This recommendation is of the CAO is a start. I had a couple of conversations with the district attorney yesterday that I thought were nice conversations. This is a start, and as I told her yesterday, I will continue to work with her and her office on coming to some sort of solution that is, a plan that is agreeable both by you and by her office. And we'll continue to have those conversations. But the recommendation before you today, I believe, is a thoughtful recommendation. It's a measured approach to achieving a sustainable budget in the district attorney's office. The CAO's office, and I'll just tell you, we are looking not just at this fiscal year, we're looking 2 fiscal years down the road. And given what Mr. Lifquist just said, that's a responsibility that we need to take seriously. And so when we are looking at budgets, it's not just through the lens of what do you have this year, but what's that budget going to, what kind of a position are you going to be put in the following fiscal year? It is true that the district attorney came in on guideline using 100% of her BSI. I'm sorry that she didn't know that wasn't already an adopted board policy. That was prior to my arriving here. But that is an adopted board policy not to use BSI to ramp up on employees. I believe that if she wasn't aware, her business manager certainly should have been aware, as he's been there. And it's his job to know that. And even if it wasn't a policy, frankly, it is in a budget crisis like the one that we're in, it's just good, I think, common sense. I would like to say that the recommendation proposed, again, was thoughtful. It was trying, it's attempting to provide the district attorney's office with the tools that she needs to be successful. Again, while all other public safety departments are being held to 3.5, she's being held to a reduction of 0.6 0.6% in this budget. That is unique and extraordinary. It does commit a portion, so she is being allowed to use BSI. She's allowed, in this recommendation, the district attorney's office has given $500,000 in BSI, $488,000 to be exact, in BSI to use. But we're recommending that we don't use it all. It is true that it's, as I said, I'm funding 3 deputy DA positions, so it's a total of 4. I committed to the district attorney's office, to the district attorney herself, that if she funds up all 90 of the authorized positions in the next several months, the very first conversation that I will have with her come January will be about working with her on a plan to come before your board to restore those 3 positions that we're taking away. I don't know if we'll be able to do it given the state of our economy, but that was my commitment to her. And it is true that in order to make her office sustainable, in order to allow her to fill 6 vacancies between now and next year, and to avoid having to lay all those people off 2 fiscal years from now, which is what will happen if she uses all of her BSI and ramps up on all of the vacancies that she has, she will be forced to do layoffs. I don't think it'll be fair to those folks, even though there may be a willingness to do it. And so the effort was to try and provide her some funding so that those positions were sustainable going forward. Again, I've committed to the DA myself that we'll work with her and try and work on a plan over the next several weeks to the extent that we can. And just for the record, I've had more conversation with the district attorney than I've had with any other department head on this budget.
Thank you, Mr. Alsop. Okay, any questions or comments from the board? Cindy, DA Green, would you like to provide any other information to us?
Well, I'm happy to answer any questions. I have no idea if I've had more conversations with Mr. Alsop, but I certainly accept his word. I take issue with his comment that we're trying to ramp up on employees. I'm not asking for any new positions. I'm asking for the positions that we need to get the job done, to fulfill our mandate. And I have a problem with being told that, you know, we can talk about this next January and maybe you'll get more positions, because that sounds to me like someone who's unfamiliar with the criminal justice system is micromanaging what I need to do or what I see as the needs of my department. I respect that Mr. Alsop has his job to do and he's doing it, but to say that we can talk about this in January, because I've actually proposed filling 4 positions at mid-year. We have talked, and I have made proposals that I could live with, and in the negotiation, because more than one supervisor, more than one of you has suggested that we negotiate, and we have talked. But in negotiation, there's a give and take. And all I keep hearing from Mr. Alsop is, this is the best for your department, this is what we want you to do. There's no giving on the part of the CAO's office. I am willing to talk with them to see what we can work out. I've given a lot of suggestions. 3 weeks ago, my ASO sent an email to Brent Curry, you know, with some opening thoughts, and the response the next day was this, you know, essentially, we can't do this, can't do this, this is our bottom line, this is the best we can do. That doesn't sound like a negotiation to me. But I will say, I do have to say this about the one-time use of funds. The policy that Mr. Alsop refers to is a policy that's been around in the county for over 15 years. And it's ignored whenever it's convenient, the one-time use of funds. I think that we all know that. It was ignored last year. It was ignored the year before. The board sometimes uses a one-time use of funds. But the thing about the policy, and I just have to take offense, My Administrative Services Officer, Scott Johnson, the one thing I can say about him, he's not a mind reader. So when Mr. Alsop says, then he should have known, I take responsibility. If somebody should have known, then it should have been me, and I didn't know. And in my conversations with others, I don't think that was a widely held thought. But I will say that same policy basically says such a plan could involve short-term use of one-time funds to preserve essential public services. And that is what I'm up here saying to you. I'm asking you, without any further cost to the general fund this year, to approve the budget I submitted, and so that public safety, so that the business of my office can be handled in a way that the safety of the citizens of our community expect. That's all I had, Chairman Scrivener, thank you. But I am happy to answer any questions.
Okay. I see Supervisor Gleason's punched in.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Green, thanks for coming up. I think I heard Mr. Alsop say that you have 84 billets filled. Could you comment on that?
Yes. So historically, I pulled actually the positions. We've had 94 positions since about 2012, 2013. Historically, we've always had filled 92, 93, 94 positions. And the reason we're so low now is in 2016, about close to mid-year, we had 3 deputy DAs win judicial elections. We had another 3 retire, and then we had approximately 3 or 4 leave for actually other prosecutorial agencies. So in this last year, we've actually trying to hire, but hiring in the district attorney's office, as I think other public safety agencies, is extremely slow because of the nature of the background checks that need to be done. So we've been interviewing, and we have hired a number of people. We just hired 2, but at the same time, 2 more deputy DAs gave notice. So we've just had difficulty in this last year, in the 16-17 budget year, of filling the open positions. We've been trying to. Trust me, it would have been my preference to come in here to say, well, we have 94 positions filled. But I also would like to tell the board that I have 2, and I believe it's 3 more attorneys that will be starting within the next 3 months. We're hoping to hire 4 to 5 law clerks to mitigate, so they would come in the fall. And if they pass the bar, they would be able to start around December 1st. So we have the list open now. We're going to be interviewing from the May people who passed the bar in May. We'll be interviewing probably early next month. So I'm optimistic, I'm hopeful that we could fill all those positions if we had all those positions. But that is a unique set of circumstances that exist in this last budget year.
Thank you, Ms. Green.
Welcome.
Thank you, Supervisor Gleason. Supervisor Maggard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. District Attorney Green, I want to make sure I understand. The 84 that are currently filled, does that include the 2 that you just hired? Or does that take the 84 up to 86?
They haven't started yet, so it does not include them.
So that would take, the 2 you are in process of being hired, that would take us to 86.
Yes.
How long do you think it will take to hire the 2 more that you have in the pipeline?
I believe they both have start dates towards the end of July.
So very early in your fiscal year?
Yes.
Okay, so that would take us to 88.
86, I'm sorry.
84 plus 2 you said that are not...
Two just started.
And then the 2 that you're going to hire that are in the pipeline, you said would be here by July sometime?
That's right.
84, doesn't that take us to 88? 84 plus 2 is it?
I think we're losing, 2 people one just left last week and another is leaving
2
within
are
the
leaving.
month, yes.
Okay, so that leads into where your BSI comes from. How much BSI do you have today?
Supervisor Maggard, through the chair, 1.4 million.
And how much did you have at the end of last year's budget?
I'm not sure. I thought...
Would your analyst know if you ask him?
About the same.
About the same.
Yes.
So if you request 94 positions, your budget will, funded positions, your budget will contain funding for those positions, but if you don't have all of those positions filled, you will generate more BSI, will you not?
Yes.
How much more BSI do you think you'll generate in the current, in the upcoming year, from those positions that are filled but, funded but not filled?
Well, it's hard to predict. It's very difficult to predict. We're considering offering 4 to 5 positions to people who take the July bar. And so whether they came in as extra help law clerks until they got their results, which they would be starting around December 1st. If those positions were funded, and in my discussions with Mr. Alsop, we were able to reach an agreement that they only were funded at January 1st, then that would be 4 to 5 positions, savings of 6 months each. So in terms of the BSI, so it's just hard to predict.
So 4 to 5 positions. How much does each position cost in a year?
For Deputy DA1 with salary and benefits is approximately $120,000.
So 4 times 120 is 480.
Yes.
Times half a year? I'm looking past you at your analyst to see if he's nodding too.
Yes.
Half a year?
Yes.
So about 240,000.
Approximately, yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Alsop, Ms. Lawson, what is your perspective on those numbers? Are those numbers, nobody here is trying to deceive anyone. We're just all trying to understand. We're looking at a camel from a bunch of different sides, and we're trying to figure out how to describe the camel. So, what is your perspective on that?
Supervisor Maggard, through the chair, first of all, if I can just clarify on the BSI program, they don't earn BSI on salary and benefits. Just to clarify, it's only on service and supplies and excess revenue, just for that.
So there's no increase in BSI that will result from her spending less?
That is correct.
Who will enjoy the increase in our cash position by her budget position, by her not spending all of her anticipated funds on benefits and salaries?
For specifically salaries and benefits, that close to the county's general fund at the end of each fiscal year for each general fund budget unit. However, the accumulation of BSI obviously carries forward within their own budget unit.
So do you agree with her ballpark of how many positions that she may be able to fill by halfway through the year, and how much you think that might generate in savings to the general fund?
Typically for this budget unit, they are unable to fill all of their authorized positions. Therefore, there is a continual what we call salary savings that they're unable to spend. So if she in the past has used BSI to fund the full night, for example, 94 positions, what I believe that happens within there, because they're not able to fill those positions quickly, is that they don't end up using the BSI even though they're authorized, because they're not able to fill them.
And why do you think our concern in the past was that she was going to not have remaining BSI available to make up the reductions in her budget, but her BSI has remained constant? Can you comment about that?
Supervisor Maggard, through the chair, that I would speculate that the BSI has remained constant because they've had enough salary savings, because they haven't filled the full 94 positions for a long period of time, so they're not having to use some of their BSI. However, she's indicating if they fully, and that's their mission, is to fill every vacancy within that office, then you will be depleting 100% the BSI, and that won't be ongoing.
You recommended, in this recommended budget, giving her a $500,000 supplement support from the general fund. I would like not to give any department a support from the general fund more than others are getting, if that's plausible. So why did you decide that we would give her department a $500,000 that nobody else is getting?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Maggard, if I can answer that. The issues with that have been raised by the district attorney this morning relative to the work that she's doing and the staffing needs that she has been an ongoing conversation since I started in January, really. both through email, phone calls, and in personal meetings. Our effort here today was essentially the way I'm looking at the DA's budget. It's a unhealthy budget within an unhealthy budget. And our effort was to try and this year fix her budget in a way that helps her deal more effectively, or her successor more effectively with the requirements of your four-year mitigation plan the next 2 years. The idea is to allow her to hire up staff to do the good work that they do, and ensure that those staff members that she hires up, she's able to sustain long term. So she doesn't have to waste time bringing them on and then laying them off. As Nancy said, if she, her initial proposal was to use 100% of BSI, if that were spent on hiring, filling vacancies, to be technically accurate, filling vacancies up to and potentially beyond the 90 that we're proposing, the 94, let's say, we will, as soon as January or February, come to your board and suggest a guideline for each department. And that guideline could be anywhere right now from 3.8 to 5% of a reduction. We have no idea how the district attorney's office will meet that guideline other than to lay people off. And so that's what it really boils down to. It's about making sure that she's in a position 2 fiscal years from now, 3 fiscal years from now, to be able to weather the storm and provide. She can use 100% BSI, but it's not to fill positions, according to the board policy. Whether it was adopted 15 years ago or more recently, I don't know. Elsa's telling me it's more recently. I hope that answers your question, Supervisor.
Well, it helps answer the question, but this is a pretty complicated thing. What I'm trying to figure out partly is if we're talking about tomatoes or tomatoes here, because she has 84 positions filled, as I understand it, in December. Is that right, Ms. Green? You think you'll be at 84? Because you have hired 2 that are about to come on. You have 2 that will come on in December, I think you said, but 2 are leaving, so that leaves 84.
No.
I missed that.
Yes, I'm hoping, we've already interviewed a group to be potential law clerks, and that's between 4 and 5. It just depends on if they pass the bar.
So 4 and 5.
4 and 5 at December 1st, January 1st.
So that could take you up to 5 more, would take you to 89.
Right, and
Okay.
we have, as I said, we have the list open, and we're about to, in the next couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, close that list and interview people from that list who passed the bar in May. And so we're just optimistic that there'll be at least 1 or 2 candidates from that list. And I hate to give voice to it, but I have no expectation as I stand here today that anyone else from my office will be leaving in the next 6 months, but
But it could happen.
it could happen.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how long would it take? I want to make sure I understood correctly. You think there are 5, but not all of them may pass the bar and pass the background? 1 or
Yes.
2, you said, might?
I would hope that, we would see 4 out of 5. But
4 out of 5.
Last year, we had 2, Supervisor Maggard, and neither of them passed.
Okay. So 4 would take it to 88. Here's the part that I'm not comprehending. 88 is less than 90. 90 is what you're recommending. And when would the other 4 come on? If they pass in August or whenever you said, when would they become actually hired and affect your budget?
Either, let's say January 1st. But
So if we're still not to, excuse me for interrupting, you need to finish that sentence.
No, I was just going to say that we're at 84. We have 2 that'll be starting. We have a 3rd that I believe is going to accept an offer right now, so that puts us at 87, and I'm hoping to hire in this period that I said, this window that's going to close, 1 or 2 more. So it staff us up to, I mean, if I had my choice, we'd staff up to 94, but I'm hoping to be at 92 by the end of the year.
Okay. I want to, it's difficult and complicated and tedious to try to solve all of these issues as we're sitting here in this setting. But one of my underlying principles is, particularly for elected department heads, I want you to be able to run your department. And I want you to be able to hire what you think you can hire and manage your budget the way you can manage your budget. My bias is towards that. My bias, I'm not suggesting you're going to do this. My bias is also towards, I want it to be very apparent that if you decided to make decisions that hired people that you couldn't sustain and you have to lay those people off, that's on you. That's not on us. You made that decision. We didn't make that decision. So I'm not suggesting that you would do this, but I want it to be apparent today that if that is what we end up doing and you cannot sustain funding for them and they have to be terminated, I don't want to be asked the question, hey, well, I need these people, so I need to give me more money now to sustain the positions. I want everybody to know going in, if you are the department head and you made that call, as I said, that's on you, and I think you're comfortable. That's what the oath you took was to do just that, so
I
I'm sure
completely
you're comfortable.
agree with you, and so what's troubling to me is and it's not just Mr. Alsop, because I've heard it in other years, about the concern about, well, we want to prevent layoffs. That's my job. I understand my job. I'll do my job as I look out for all our constituents in this county.
So on the flip side, I am not comprehending why this is that big of an issue. If it's going to be well after the first of the year and the department still won't be to the 90 positions that you are authorizing, I would rather, another of my underlying principles is I would like not to add $500,000 of general fund money to this department when we're not doing that for anybody else. So I'm left without a solution that works. Those are the elements that aren't meeting for me, meshing for me. And if we approve this placeholder budget today and go forward, there is plenty of time between now and August for the CAO's office and the district attorney to try to figure out where they can agree and where they cannot, and how to make it clear to us these are the elements that need to be resolved. I don't have any problem making decisions, but it is not clear to me yet why there is this incongruent, you guys aren't on the same page about this. So I would recommend that we send this back to you for you to wrestle with, and there's plenty of time between now and when it's going to come to us in August. And I would like to have an update sooner than later about, are we making headway? Are we someplace where this can be worked out? Because I would like to let the district attorney run her department the way she sees fit. I'm not going to repeat all the things I just said, but I don't understand why this doesn't work if there are positions that appear to not be fulfilled, very likely throughout the whole year. So that's enough for now, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Mager, may I just ask a question for clarification? Are you suggesting we don't pass the preliminary budget today and send it back to staff? I was unclear on
I
this.
am not suggesting that we do not pass the budget. We must pass a budget.
Okay.
It is our duty to pass a budget.
Okay.
But I think it's okay for us to pass a budget with a clear direction that we have an issue here that needs to be resolved, and that part of the budget may be reopened and treated differently if the two sides can't come together.
Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification. I did not make that clear.
Supervisor Couch.
Thank you. Thank you for speaking up today. I just have some questions, and if you want to elaborate on the answers, that's great, but they're going to get down in the weeds a little bit like Supervisor Mager just did. So if you need to ask Scott up, that's okay. I want to touch on something he talked about. The BSI that you are suggesting you use this year,
Yes.
All of it to balance your budget. You had about that amount last year. It didn't really change. So that, I'm speaking something I want you to verify. That's because you had people retire, move, and you didn't need to use the BSI for your salaries because you had salary savings. Am I on the right page?
Supervisor Couch to the chair, the BSI, as Ms. Lawson indicated, is different than salary savings. And we garner that from, when, let's say we're funded for 93 attorney positions. So BSI comes from services and supplies. So
Got
if
it.
that type of thing. And so, okay.
I understand that part,
Okay.
but the reason
My
your
apologies.
your BSI did not change from last year to this year is because you didn't use it. Is that right?
We used it all, and then now this is what we have. We used it all in the budget, the 16-17 budget.
You
And
used it in the budget, but
Yes.
you never actually spent it during the fiscal year.
Correct.
So or maybe you spent a few dollars, or maybe it increased a little bit. I don't know, but it's about the same as it was last year.
It is, and it's not just the 4 deputy district attorneys. That's what I've focused on today, but it is an investigator position and,
Okay.
and about 3 clerical positions that would be unfunded in the CAO's proposal.
What are those new hires told, especially in an environment like this? Are they told, you're the first to go if the budget is cut?
That Supervisor Couch, through the chair, that's an excellent question. And I will tell the board that since I've hired many, many attorneys since 2011, and what I tell them, I'm the one who tells them, is I make an offer to them, basically, and then I tell them, I said the county's policy is last one in, first one out, if there are layoffs. And a couple of years, the individuals who had families and they were relocating said, can I get back to you? Can I talk to my wife or my significant other? And I said, absolutely. So it was out front, I'm out front, and I still do that today.
Good. I assumed that, but I just wanted to make sure of that. Let's assume for a second, let's make some assumptions here, that your BSI is used to fund your budget to the 94 positions, and you spend all of it. And you are forced to lay off those 4. What's that process look like in the next budget year?
Well, the notice has to go to the board. And I think it's about 2 months' notice that there's possible layoffs with positions. That's how the process works.
I guess what I'm asking is this.
What's my plan?
No, well, I have a comment about that, and it's not a derogatory one, but it seems to me like this is probably as much our fault maybe as anybody's, that the board adopted a 4-year plan, and I think we assumed that the department heads would take that 4-year plan and figure out sort of their own 4-year plan within that plan. And I think that's what the CAO is now trying to, at least in this case with you, he's trying to sort of get your department to adopt a 3-year plan for the remaining 3 years of the 4-year plan. And I mean, I can appreciate what he's trying to do. I can also appreciate what you're trying to do. I guess, let me ask a question about that. What, do you see it that way? And is the only issue you have with that you're not getting to hire the 4 that you want? Or do you just disagree with that philosophy?
I understand the CAO's position, but as you all know, and as I know, things change. There's money that comes to public safety from Prop 172 that's apportioned out to public safety agencies in our county. And in this year, we were told it's going to be X amount of dollars less. But there is a surplus in that fund. There's millions of dollars in that fund. And the board has the ability to change percentages as to who receives the Prop 172 money. There's so many things in play, as you know.
We talked about that last year, right?
I don't believe you talked about it with me, but I believe
Okay.
it was talked about with Mr. Spielman when he stood in for me.
Okay.
And so there's so many things in play that could possibly happen, in a budget year that I think there's a lot of options available. And every year I approach it in terms of how do we provide the best service to the citizens of our county. And I can tell you now that at the staffing that we have, because we've had difficulty hiring this last year, as our number of trials increase, projected to be over 200 jury trials this year, which they've increased. When I took office, I think the number was about 115. So now we're projecting over 200, and they're all serious crime. It's not possession of drugs in a pocket or possession of drugs in your car. These are serious crimes with victims. And so I will tell you that as I've asked, as we've had difficulties hiring and the attorneys have had to take on more cases, it's not business as usual. Our conviction rate has fallen. It is not business as usual. I'm here to tell you that. The attorneys cannot take on more than they're taking on now. That's all that I can say. I can tell you anecdotally that on Thursday, a very senior prosecutor in my office is being honored as Prosecutor of the Year in the state of California for large counties. And about a year and a half ago, or about a little over a year ago, she came into the chief deputy and basically asked to be taken out of her current assignment because it was family violence. The caseload was too heavy. She couldn't handle what she needed to do for sexual assault victims and child molest victims, and she couldn't do the job right. She didn't want to be doing it. And that is what I fear. That is what, if you talk to an attorney and they ask you about caseloads, they'll tell you. And another piece of the puzzle that I didn't mention is our prison unit, because we are down staffing, now we are losing revenue. We're losing revenue because the state pays for all my prison personnel. But because I can't staff up my prison unit to what we've had in the past, so we're losing revenue. So it's kind of a vicious circle. And so we need to keep that unit full and keep the other units staffed. And so that's just, these are my problems. I hate to bother you or bore you with them, but this is what I'm facing. And it's...
Let me back it up and ask it another way.
Okay.
I'm trying to understand, I think I understand the CEO's perspective, and I think I understand yours, but I'm trying to ask just a question that would sort of cut through that and clarify that. You understand that they're trying to get you to sort of come up with a 3-year plan, because I'm assuming that 3-year plan, what you're proposing to the district attorney's office and district attorney is to do something similar to what you're doing this year over this year and the following fiscal years. Is that correct?
Yeah, Chairman Scribner, Supervisor Cows, yes, that's essentially correct.
Okay, so that's where I'm asking is, if that is the case, is it just sort of a philosophical issue that you disagree with that approach and you'd rather look at this on a year-to-year basis simply because, I don't mean to minimize that, but because things can change and a 3-year approach may not be what you think is optimal, you'd rather look at it on an annual basis?
The short answer to that question is yes. I'd rather look at it on a year-to-year basis to assess cases, crimes, violent crimes, that kind of thing. It can't...
I understand. So
Okay.
I'm trying to
Yes.
what I'm really trying to get to is what next year may look like. And the only way I think we can do that is, did you use BSI to some degree in your budget last year?
I think we've used it to some degree every year in the last 6 years. To some degree.
Well, that makes me wonder even more, because has BSI basically stayed stagnant over that time period, or does it move up and down a lot?
No, I couldn't tell you how much it's moved up and down, but we have used it to some extent. Some years more than others. Last year, we used all of it, as I said. I couldn't tell you what it was in 15, 16.
You used all of it in the budget, but you didn't spend it?
Right.
Okay. So let's assume you had spent it all. What would you be asking us to do this year if the BSI didn't even exist? Because that's what the fear of the CAOs, or what they're trying to mitigate, is next year, if BSI doesn't exist, what are we going to look at?
I'd be asking you to, and the board has discussed a number of options themselves, sparing public safety the cuts, and not imposing the cuts countywide. That was discussed last year. I don't know if it was discussed this year, but I'd be asking you to spare us the cuts, to prioritize public safety, as each of you says at one time or another. Most recently, Chairman Scribner said that is a priority of the board. I'd be asking you to prioritize public safety and the value of prosecutors in the courtroom. I've said many times over the last few years, and without calling out any particular department, I don't have, 95% of my budget is personnel, and I don't have some of the options that are available to other county departments in terms of making cuts.
We go back a long ways, so I'm going to ask you a difficult question. You're disappointed with the CAO's office that they didn't really want to, in your view, they didn't really negotiate with you. And so let me ask you this, would there be any other options that you would propose to us other than sparing every position in your department?
Yes.
What would those-
I hate
what
to
would those be?
bore all of you. I mean, I'd like to have that conversation. We have had that conversation, but yes, I'm not here digging in and saying I have to have this. I understand the position we're in, and I have, as I've given one example of the not filling the positions to January, but there are other options, and
Is the Prop 172 change of or use of the
that's a possibility.
reserves, I think you called it?
Yes, that's a possibility. That there are actually at least half a dozen other options available. I'm not. We funded 94 positions.
Have you had any of those discussions, any of those with our CAO's office?
Yesterday, I would agree with Mr. Alsop. We had 2 lengthy discussions yesterday, and I forget how he characterized it, but I don't think they were productive, but they weren't unpleasant.
Okay.
They weren't adversarial, and so what I feel is that I was given direction, as I said, from more than one supervisor, but I think the first one was Chairman Scrivener to reach out to Mr. Alsop, and I did, and he agreed that we could negotiate. But then, as that story unfolded, it was an email from my ASO to Mr. Curry on one day, and the next day it's like, sorry, can't do anything you want. There wasn't even a meeting. There wasn't even a phone call. Negotiations is a give and take, and that has not happened. Am I willing to talk? Yes. The answer to your question is yes, Supervisor Couch.
Okay, thank you. I will agree that we have to disagree about one thing. I do think that the offer of $500,000 of general fund was a fairly significant one.
I agree.
So
I agree.
I think you have a willing partner in those types of discussions.
I agree, but not at the cost of 4 positions. Let me use $1 million of my BSI. Give me $500,000 from the general fund, and I'm good. but that's not an option.
Thank you.
Thanks, Supervisor Couch. Any other questions for Ms. Green? Supervisor Gleason.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Green. My question is for Mr. Alsop. If we exempt the DA, we allow her to use her BSI to fill her budget hole, and next year we come up and say you need to do 3.8%. We'll say that's the number we come up with. What does that mean from your perspective for the DA's budget?
If she's is as successful as she's saying relative to hiring up staff.
And she hires up staff. She
Yeah.
completely fills 94 billets.
We will, she'll have to lay off at least 10 individuals. I'm ballparking that's about, I would say about at least 10. If it's higher than 3.8, we're talking more in order to meet the guideline.
Okay, so let's say she argues next year for 3.8, and she's exempted next year. What impact will that have on other departments? Their 3.8 goes up to what?
I don't know off the top of my head,
there's not 4%?
There is an impact on other departments. There's no doubt. I mean, this recommended budget, I'm not sure the news that the district attorney's office has been given $500,000 in general fund sits well with everybody. I'm certain it doesn't. But sometimes you can't make everybody happy. We thought it was necessary given the state of her budget situation and the future, and how incredibly fragile her situation is. And I can only just say, Supervisor, that I am willing. I mean, if this would bring this to a point, I'm willing to continue to talk with the DA's office and figure out a solution if it's not this one. We genuinely attempted to, I wanted to make Lisa happy. I did. And I'll admit it. I wanted to make her successful and happy. This was a genuine proposal, and it was thoughtful and sustainable. It gets her where I think she needs to go. It boils down to the being staffed all the way up. Is what I've boiled this down to. The DA's office wants to have all of their vacancies authorized and funded, all of them, all of their positions, with nothing held. And that's what it comes down to, and it's about 4. And we thought the proposal that we gave was appropriate. They carry anywhere from 4 to, 6 vacancies at any given time. It goes up and down. I've got a spreadsheet here that shows the last year of staffing, and they've been down to 82 just this year. 84, 86, 88, 83, 84, 90. This budget takes them up to 90 and ensures since August 30th, 2016, the CAOs, my predecessor and myself collectively have approved 24 requests to fill vacancies, 24. I myself have approved 10. It's just in the last 6 months. So I have I'm committed to moving things for her quickly so that she can staff up. Sorry, I'm
That's
getting
okay.
on.
That's okay. Thank you very much. I'll
Yeah.
stop there. I'll stop
Yeah.
there. Thanks.
Supervisor Couch.
Thank you. I had another question for Mr. Alsop or maybe Ms. Lawson. Prop 172 was brought up, and it occurs to me, we've had a conversation about that, and maybe a year ago, and I think you told me that that's a sales tax pool, I'll call it, and are we using more than what is coming in, and we're amortizing over the course of, not amortizing is the wrong word, but we're assuming a depletion of those funds over a course of years? So we're not just spending what's coming in?
Supervisor Couch, through the chair, thank you for that opportunity for clarification. Our office does administer the public safety, the local public safety funds is what we call them, Prop 172. We have, over the last couple of years, it is all sales tax driven. It's based on not just sales tax, but also use tax. As you know, we have multiple wind projects and solar projects that have happened over the last several years that has achieved Kern County a higher allocation of those funds, of which we knew were one time. So your board, at the same time we were setting aside 50% of wind energy one-time use stuff for infrastructure replacement. Also, we saw that issue happening within the Prop 172 funds. So we had set aside those one-time funds in the understanding that we knew the revenue estimates for all of the public safety departments. This is not only affecting the DA, it also sheriff, fire, public defender, probation, all get an allocation of this. So what's happening is that we are seeing, obviously, is the slowdown of that use tax coming from those construction activities. We have roughly 9.8 million in our designation. 4.5 is going to be released in order to keep them at the current revenue estimate, and that the rest of that will be used in 18-19. If we were to remove that use of designation, they would be at 71 million instead of 75 million in allocation. 60% of that goes to the sheriff's office. I mean, these are major reductions in revenues that we're going to be seeing over the next couple of years. The designation that's in there now will last us 2 years, and they're still going to have to take a revenue estimate reduction for budget purposes. So we would strongly recommend that we not release any more reserves and keep their revenue estimates as high as we can for at least the next 2 years.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Couch. Are there any other questions or comments from the board in regards to the DA's budget?
Chairman, do we have a motion by Supervisor Maggard to continue to approve and then continue negotiations between our DA and CAO?
He didn't make a motion, and we still have other speakers that I know they're wanting to make comment. I believe the sheriff wants to make comment. I think what he was suggesting is that the negotiations between the DA and the CAO's office continue as we approach the budget hearings in, what, August 29th? Is that when we start? Was that correct, Supervisor Maggard? I don't want to speak for you. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other comments, thank you, Ms. Green.
Thank you.
Good morning, Sheriff Donnie Youngblood. And I appreciated the comment looking at a camel from a lot of different directions, and I just want you to know my view of the camel is not very pleasant. Well, we are taking a 3.5% cut in the sheriff's office, which equates to over $4 million. I did not believe that we could provide anywhere near the same service level with that cut when we started down this road. However, my staff went back to work, and I just want to point out a few things that they have done to help us accept this unpleasant budget. We talked about Prop 172. We're taking a $1.6 million cut in 172. It's hard to have a 3-year budget plan when you don't know what those numbers are going to be next year. Retirement fluctuates. Prop 172 is obviously going down, so it's very difficult to say, yes, we can, for the next 3 years, we have a plan. We civilianized 55 deputy sheriff or detention deputy positions into sheriff's aides, which is going to save us an awful lot of money. About $2.7 million is a decrease in salary and benefits for the sheriff's office. I want to point out that we've had a lot of help from Lorelei Oviatt and the CBG funds. Without her, we would probably really be in a much bigger hole than what we are. We've also are in the process of contracting with the state of California for state hospital beds that will help us in the tune of $2.1 million and increase our ability to survive. That was something that the governor put in the budget that my staff has been working on for a lengthy period of time. We're still paying PPV and HRV. That means that deputy sheriffs in the county are actually paying to drive their patrol cars, unlike any other department in this county, and we've done that for several years. That brings in $250,000 into our budget every year. We've provided 94,000 hours of volunteer time from the 500 people that volunteer their time into the county, and that equates to $2.2 million in savings. We restricted our training to mandated and essential only. We obtained $1.3 million in federal excess property. As you're aware, a few years ago, we took over an airplane from the fire department so that we could use asset forfeiture money, which is drug money that we seize, to make the payments on that aircraft. That aircraft will be paid off this year, again, with asset forfeiture funds. So if you go back over those years, that's probably $3 million that we've saved out of the general fund by using asset forfeiture funds to pay for that aircraft. We've implemented a redeployment strategy of personnel in our substations. This was a plan that deputy sheriffs helped put together to save us $500,000 and not impact our response times in our outlying areas any more than they had to. Through this process, we've been able to keep the Rural Crimes Task Force alive and well. I know it's important to you, and it's also important to me. We, in the sheriff's office, I'm funded with a sheriff, undersheriff, and 4 bureau chiefs. Right now, we're operating with 2 bureau chiefs, which means the people in the back of this room are doing a lot more than they've ever had to do before. I don't know that we can continue for the entire year with 2 bureau chiefs, but we're gonna do what we can, and this was their suggestion to help us get through this budget. We've had an awful lot of contact and communication with the new CAO. I can tell you that he doesn't have a problem saying no, but he says it in a way that we're able to accept, and a way he's helped us work through the process to get through this budget. And I couldn't be more complimentary of our CAO than I am. He's been, I think, a great asset to this county so far, and I appreciate the help. He's not a Matt Constantine yet at that status, but he could get there. With a little work, he could get there. But with that, we have worked very diligently to get through this budget. We're accepting the 3.5%. It's very difficult. Don't mistake that for we like it. because we don't like it. But we realize that the position that we're in, and we're doing the best that we can. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Sheriff. Appreciate that. Do any members of the board have any comments for the sheriff or questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much. Good morning.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, honorable members of the board, county staff. Romeo Agbalog, representing Kern Citizens for Sustainable Government. Here before you today to offer congratulations to the County Administrative Office and all the various departments who came together to put together a preliminary budget plan for you to consider today that is consistent with multi-year reduction plan and provides for minimal service interruption to the public. But what we wanted to speak to about this morning is the funding that's provided for Lean 6 training. And that's a process that Kern Citizens for Sustainable Government supports. We commend you for the investment in that process, and we look forward to hearing about your successes and how that progress occurs moving forward. So with that, moving forward, we know that you have some difficult decisions to make moving forward into August, and we ask you to remain committed, vigilant, and diligent in your hard work, and we thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Agbalog, and if we haven't said it before, congratulations on your new position with Kern Citizens. I want to ask our CAO if they'd like to take this opportunity to maybe share briefly some of the early success we've had with Lean.
Yeah, if I can, before Mr. Turnipseed comes up, I see he was walking down here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and I appreciate Kern Citizens for being here today. Thank you for the nice comments. Lean Six Sigma is something that we're taking very seriously. It is in line with our county-wide goal number 2, which is becoming a model of excellence in managing our business and our people. Lean Six is an anchor to that goal, a major strategy within that goal. As most of you know, we are in the middle of training up all of our county leaders on the Lean Six Sigma process. It is a process and concept that simply focuses on becoming becoming faster and better. We're training up our county leaders, all of our department heads and executive staff. We're hoping to be done by early fall, having trained up through the championship level of Lean Six, all of our department heads and their top staff. It is by far the most aggressive, widespread implementation of Lean Six, a culture like Lean Six Sigma, done by any county that I know of in the state. So it is I'm proud of it. I know that you all are, and I hope to see some big benefit down the road. And I know we've already had some deliverables due to Lean Six. And I was wondering, Mr. Chairman, if you'll indulge me, I was wondering if Bill Walker, who's our Director of Behavioral Health, if he could scoot up to the mic and maybe just share a few of the deliverables that Lean Six has provided he and his organization.
Feder, I like it. It's a very efficient way to convey faster and better. Mr. Walker, how are you, sir? Thanks for being here.
Thank you. He stole my line. I was going to say decided to scoot on up here. Thank you. And actually, starting with the funding, I think most of you know that Kern Behavioral Health and Recovery Services has a strong history of developing trainings and then inviting other departments or community members into those trainings. And so the general fund was not at risk of the current trainings, and we've worked very closely with the CAO's office in terms of how to sustain these trainings. We are about a year further into Lean Six than most other departments, and a few things that we have done. One of them is that we have 110 cars in our fleet because we see many of our mentally ill individuals in the community. And one of the things that we were seeing is that we're underutilizing those vehicles. We've seen through a Lean Six project a huge improvement that I was actually going to supply graphically to the CAO's office that shows systems that are 50 to 80% greater in usage just by applying the principles of Lean Six Sigma. We also, the Audit Controller Office had found problems with our use of EPRs, not getting our employee ratings done in time. We are at 100% and have been for several months, also as the result of a Lean Six project. Lean Six is not pie in the sky, and it doesn't make us do things differently, like we were going to do therapy differently than we did, but it really helps you with your effectiveness and efficiency in many areas. We've also had many short-term projects, and one of the biggest ones is looking at the efficiency of the different forms we need to run through the county system. This morning, I approved several forms that now come at me electronically that I can do and move off my desk at just a touch of a mouse, whereas before that was this person signs it, that person signs it, this person says, I didn't get the form. This person says, what do you mean you didn't get the form? We sent the form. If you've ever been in that kind of an office thing, when you have 700 staff in multiple locations, how it's simply getting more effective, efficient ways of moving your decision-making back and forth. So I am sold completely. I'm also sold on Dr. Scott Thor as a consultant to the county and to our department. I look forward to continuing to work with the CAO's office, other departments, and continuing to engage these trainings. And it's not just something we're planning on doing, it's something for our department that has already seen great improvements.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Your leadership and cooperation has been exceptional, and as far as Lean goes, thank you so much. Supervisor Gleason.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple things I'd like to throw on around about Lean Six Sigma. You don't have to. First thing, I've seen you up here with juggling balls.
Yeah.
I've seen you with ukuleles, and now what's the deal with the scooter? What happened to you?
I wish I could give you a better story, but I was walking the dog, talking to my wife, and didn't notice the sidewalk had a big section missing, and broke my foot stepping into it.
Wow. And you're our mental health coordinator.
Yeah, and substance use disorders as well, but there was no substances involved in this event.
Your sidewalk is in the city, isn't it?
Actually, it was in the city of Ventura.
Oh, very good, very
Though,
good.
if I had the ukulele, I could play Proud Mary to the tune of Broken Foot Song.
Right, thanks. You can sit down, Mr. Walker. Thank you very much for your contributions. I think it's important as we have these conversations about Lean Six Sigma is that we don't set a level of expectations that we can't meet. We all need to understand that Lean Six Sigma is not a cost-cutting measure. That's not the purpose nor the design of Lean Six Sigma. Lean Six Sigma is designed to embrace certain fundamental quality of life and quality process issues. We go about trying to find the best way to provide the best possible customer service to enhance the ability of us to deliver the quality of the product we deliver. It's not cost cutting. It's not about cutting people's jobs. It's not about reducing the budget. Hopefully, somewhere down the road, we're going to find that we're in a place where we're much more efficient in the use of our resources, and a byproduct of that will be reduction in expenses. But we need to understand that because we're starting this process coincident with a huge budget deficit that we're grappling with, does not mean we're trying to solve the budget deficit with Lean Six Sigma. It means that we understand who we are as a organization, and that we are respecting each other, we're respecting the process, and we're striving to deliver a process of continuous improvement in everything we do. And by delivering that quality product to a customer, which is the taxpayer, we're going to be rock stars in terms of who we are as a county and how we behave and how we manage our resources and how we treat the taxpayer. So please don't misunderstand Lean Six Sigma and have an expectation that because we're on this journey that we're going to immediately start meeting our budget requirements, because the two are not necessarily related, especially in the short term. Long term, we'll have some benefits, I'm sure, but short term, it's not cost-cutting efforts. The other thing we need to understand is that success is not guaranteed. There is no guarantee that we are going to succeed with Lean Six Sigma implementation just because we say so, because we want to. Success in the implementation of Lean Six Sigma is going to depend primarily on the commitment of the leaders in our county. So if you as a leader understand and take the time to appreciate the value in the changes that Lean Six Sigma can bring to your organizations, and you see the value in the improved processes that will begin to continuously occur because you're embracing this policy, then you have a chance of succeeding. If you don't, as a leader, believe in it and you don't drink the Kool-Aid, no one else will either, because change is difficult. And it's never guaranteed. The hottest thing to do is to change sometimes. And that's what Lean Six Sigma is all about, is about change. We must change. We must adapt to changing circumstances. And I believe this is a management tool, and it's oriented towards process improvement. And we're going to focus on those processes. And as a result, we're going to demonstrate more respect for the taxpayer, more respect for each other, and more respect for trying to get something done in an efficient manner. Also success depends upon project selection. We have to select processes that work. And I know that it's not going to be easy. It's never easy in government organizations where your resource is not necessarily aligned with your requirements. It's patently obvious in the Sheriff's Department. It's going to be extraordinarily difficult for that department to align itself with principles that Kern County is espousing when their resources come from a lot of their resources come from a different area, or the DA, or any number of organizations that have resources coming down this chute and requirements come in this direction. How do you match the two to combine them, to funnel them, to create the efficiencies we want to create? So we understand the issues. It can succeed in government. I've seen it succeed in government. It has succeeded in many city, local, county, and federal agencies, and we can make it happen here. Just don't expect the world to change because we've made these decisions and we're headed down this road. Just read about it, understand with it, grapple with it, understand that change is difficult, and I think that if you believe and you see the morale of your forces improve because they believe they're doing something to better the quality of their product that they're delivering, whether that's in-home support services or whether that's locking people up. If we can do a better job, it's a moral obligation for us to try, and in doing so, we will be rewarded by having a more efficient county government. I don't mean to go on and on about that, but it's important that we set the right tone for Lean Six Sigma, and we understand exactly what we're trying to do and what we're trying to achieve, and then how we're going to measure that success. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Gleason. Ms. Keough, you want to come on up? Good morning.
Thank you, Chair Scrivener. Good morning. Good morning, honorable members of the board, Ms. Kraus, Mr. Alsop, Liz Keough, proud resident of the 5th Supervisorial District. At this preliminary budget hearing, I'm sure you would miss my comment on animal services budget, so I didn't want to disappoint you. We are proud of the job that Mr. Cullen has done, as you know, and when I say we, I'm talking about the constituents, I'm talking about people like me who are volunteers. I think if you look at the section of the budget that has been presented, there's all kinds of numbers about spay-neuter, collaboration with other private and public agencies, adoptions. And what struck me in looking at the summary of expenditures and revenue is that while the expenditures are going up over the, let's say, 3 years from FY 14-15 to FY 17-18, so are the revenues. And if you look at the bottom line, the net general fund cost is actually going down over those years. And I think this is partially due to volunteer program that is, just as you can see from the numbers, incredible contribution that's made. So, and the main thing, of course, that I want to thank you for, and all of us, your constituents, volunteers, staff, is the allocation of the spay-neuter voucher program money. Supervisor Scrivener was out at our voucher day on June 10th, and you saw how many people showed up and wanted vouchers. I think you all know that this has been an enormously successful program, and I appreciate the fact that when we first introduced it some years ago and told you this is not an overnight fix. It's like getting a mortgage. You're not going to pay it off in the first year. You have to go down the road and continue to fund it, that you listened to us, you took our advice, you have allocated those funds, and we really appreciate it. And I thank you for your time.
Ms. Keogh, thank you. Thank you for all your volunteerism. You've been a champion, and for everybody who volunteers for animal services and throughout the county. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, board members. Michael Turnipseed representing Kern Tax. One thing is obvious, every department has faced change, mostly not for the good, but we're all moving towards sustainability. That's the paramount thing here. And especially in the DA's department, which didn't really come up, I think it came up once, there's gonna be a new DA in 18 months. So decisions that you're making today will affect the next DA and future DA. So I think that's important. You started on a journey, and as I look about change and innovation, I ran across a book called Innovator DNA. It was written in 1997 by a Harvard professor to address the challenges corporations were facing with all the technology change. And in particular, they talked about well-known companies like BlackBerry, Blockbuster Video, Kodak, the venerable Kodak, 100 and some year company. Where are those names today? Because Kodak thought, well, film is going to last forever and digital is never going to work. And they did not have the innovation. They did not have the culture of change within their organization. You started this a little over a year ago with changing the culture. We have to change. Another interesting fact, because for companies that didn't change, you can't go bankrupt and go away. So you're going to have to change either now or change later, and it's nice that you are stepping forward and making the necessary changes now. Between 2000 and 2010, if you looked at the Fortune 500 list in 2000, 40% of those companies did not exist in 2010. That's pretty staggering. If anything is to drive the change and innovation that you have to do, it's the fact that you don't want to be at the bottom of the mountain with the avalanche. You want to stop the avalanche before it gets going too much. And so I just want to say, it came brought up early, no department head will ever be blamed for layoffs. Sorry, Mr. Maggart. Everybody's going to say county lays off, supervisors lay off, and that's why you're there. And we understand the challenges you face. We've looked at the budget, and just say keep on the path because it's inevitable. You will be making these changes one way or another, so you might as well try to be innovative and creative and do it the best way possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turnipseed. Are there any other public speakers? Okay. Seeing none, I'll return to the board. The recommended action is to approve the preliminary recommended budget to establish spending authority until final budget adoption in August. Supervisor Couch.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you. Thank you for everybody's testimony today. Thank you to the hard work of the CAO's office, Mr. Alsop, Ms. Lawson, Ms. Martinez, and everybody, all the analysts that have been so critical. That brings us to the conclusion of our business this morning. We do have several items to consider in closed session, items 50 and 52 under the County Administrative Office, and then 4 items under County Council, items 52 through 55. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn to closed session.
So moved.
We are adjourned.